Everyone, today we're going to talk about how to grill asparagus. But before we get into that, let's talk about how to prepare asparagus. You probably have seen people say, oh, when you're preparing asparagus, you just snap it, right? Just snap it in half. The problem is you actually waste a lot of asparagus that's completely edible by doing that. So a couple things you can do. One is instead of holding it at both ends, you can snap it towards the bottom, which will actually leave a little bit more of the asparagus on, but you don't actually have to do that at all. You can actually just trim off that white woody area. And if you want, you can take a vegetable peeler to the ends where it's a little bit tougher, but there's still a lot of asparagus on there that if you snap it in half, you're actually gonna be just throwing in the waste can. So you can just snap it towards the bottom and you'll feel that woodier part kind of break off. But I recommend not snapping it and just cutting the edges off because you waste a lot less asparagus. So how do you buy and how do you store asparagus? Well, when you get asparagus home from the store, asparagus is best stored like cut flowers. So basically, similarly, just trim off the edges, put them in a glass with some water, and put it in the fridge. Now, depending on your fridge and the humidity, you might have to cover the asparagus with like a plastic bag, but stored that way in the fridge in a glass of water, the asparagus will actually last 2 to 3 times longer than probably what you're used to if you just brought home a bunch, left it in a bag in the crisper drawer. So I highly recommend storing asparagus that way. Something to look for when you're buying asparagus is you want uniformity in color, but mostly the main thing is you want to make sure that the skin is not wrinkled in any way. It should be firm, it should have a little bit of a bend to it, and the tips should be really, really taut and tight. If you see any sort of browning or the tips opening up at all, you definitely don't want to buy that asparagus. So you can grill asparagus a couple different ways. One way, toss the asparagus with some olive oil, some salt and pepper, even some lemon, and then lay it across the grates of the grill so it's perpendicular to the grill or it's just gonna fall right through, which you definitely don't want. And then you can grill the asparagus for about 5 minutes on each side until it has a nice char mark, and it's just a lovely, lovely way to enjoy the asparagus. Now I recommend leaving the grill open. I'm just gonna show you how to grill it on my little indoor home grill, which is just a grilling tray from like Le Creuset, but it's basically the same concept. The one thing you wanna make sure, like when it comes to asparagus, the thing that's tricky about it, whether you're grilling it, sauteing it, whatever, is that the major indicator for when asparagus is done is it starts to get really bright and green. And the thing that affects that is the thickness of the asparagus. So if you buy a bunch where the spears are really, really thin, they're gonna cook differently than the ones that are really, really thick. So typically grilling asparagus takes about 5 minutes or so on each side when you're kind of flipping it, but it really comes down to watching the asparagus, seeing that it is bright green and charred and tender, and just kind of keeping an eye on it. The second way to do it, if you are afraid of the asparagus falling through the grates, then you can actually just wrap the asparagus in some aluminum foil, also with some olive oil, salt and pepper and lemon, cover it up with aluminum foil, put that on the grill. You actually can put the lid down for that, and then just cook the asparagus again until it's like fork tender and a nice bright green. And that's how you grill asparagus.